Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms. Today I'm going to be pleating fabric. If you recall, in the last video I cut out my pattern pieces and I drew some lines with my fabric marking pen to note the area where the smocking needs to go. Now once I get this pleated up, I've got a blocking guide for the back. I've also got a blocking guide for the front. And since I'm making two fronts, I need to have a right and a left. So on one, I will use the blocking guide oriented with the arm to the left, and the next time with the blocking guide and the arm facing towards the right. Okay, let me move that piece of fabric from it because I'm not pleating that one today. I have my smocking machine threaded with 14 rows of thread. Okay, because this pattern was asking for 14 rows. Now I'm going to insert my fabric that I've rolled up on this wooden dowel, and I'm going to insert the fabric until this blue line lines up with the needle all the way to the left. Okay, and then I'm going to start pleating the fabric. If you've never seen one of these little pleating machines, they are really pretty cool. I think years ago, when I first attempted smocking, I drew up pleats on some gingham fabric using the little squares that were woven into it. Now you need to, let me see if I can move this rod down a little bit. Okay, now I'm just going to follow along with my blue line. You don't want to do this real fast because these pleater needles are about $2 a piece, or at least they were last time I bought them. You know how prices are going up these days. So I'm going to slowly pleat my fabric, keeping my blue line lined up with the first needle. And then I come to the armhole and I just keep going, pleat all the way off the edge, because in a little bit I'm going to move my pleats to block my pattern piece so that it's the right size for the pattern. Now I take this off of the needles. At some point I'll do a video on using a smocking pleater, but not today because I'm just pleating. Now you gotta be careful that you pull it through and you don't pull your threads out of the fabric. Okay, all right, so I've got this pleated. Move my pleater out of the way for a minute. Okay, as you can see, I've got it pleated. Now I'm going to get my pattern piece. Okay, now my sleeve is on the right side. So the first thing that I'm going to do before I actually block it, if you recall, I have a blue line telling me where to stop smocking. So using my seam ripper, I'm going to go up here to the top, and on the thread, on the plate that's closest to the blue line, I'm going to start pulling my threads through the fabric. And it's easy to make sure that you're staying in a line because the fabric actually has little kinks in it, so you can just follow right down the little valley and make sure that it's going to line up. Okay, now what I'll do, every 2 threads, I'll tie a knot. And you gotta learn how to tie knots so they won't come out. Because when you're smocking, there's no disaster like having a pleating thread break or untie and start coming out. Okay, so I'll be doing that for the rest of these also. Okay, now I'm going to come to the front part of the garment where the buttonholes are going to be. Now this blue line is over a little bit farther because I have to have room for the casing and the buttonholes. I think I'm going to go ahead and tie these knots. I'll be right back and tie these knots and then I'll start the video again. Okay, now I have tied the rest of the knots on the sleeve side of the garment, and I've gone ahead and I've pulled out the threads to the blue line for the smocking area that I previously marked on the pattern piece. Now the next thing I need to do before I can tie knots on the right side, I need to use my blocking guide and put it on the pattern piece. And as I'm looking at this, it's hanging out by about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to pull the pleats closer together. Mark that again. Okay, that's better. Now, just very carefully, without anything moving, I can start tying these knots one at a time. I'm not really quite sure what the name of the knot is that I tied. I'll have to look that up and mention that sometime. But it's not a square knot because I have had trouble with square knots before untying and coming out. So this is just a simple knot. Again, I'm not going to let you see me tie all these knots. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I've got that pleated and I have it blocked so that it is, well, roughly the size of the pattern piece. Now, it's going to be time for me to do a smocking design in here. Now, this pattern by Wendy Schoen has a smocking design in the pattern, which I will basically use. If I change it a little bit, I'll tell you how I change it. Now, I need to pleat the other front of the garment. I need to pleat the back of the garment and block it. And I also need to pleat my Swiss edging that's going to be my little collar. Now, I put 14 pleating threads that I have used for the front, and I'll do 14 pleating threads in the back, but the little collar is so much narrower, I will probably only pleat 4 or 5 rows on that fabric. I haven't quite decided yet exactly what design I'm going to smock on that, but when I start smocking, I will show you that. Okay, but that's what I'm doing today. Thank you.